people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Three-weight world champion Terry Harper, since signing to MVP, has welcomed a possible world title defense against MMA and boxing legend Holly Holm. Well, what do I think about this? I think it was expected. I think that Terry and Holly and Stephanie Hahn, reigning WBA champion at the same weight as Terry, are all part of a round robin at MVP. That these fighters will end up fighting each other, it's really just a question of in what order. Terry seems to want to have that fight with Holly next. I'm not convinced that's how it's going to happen. It was just the other day on MVP's Instagram account, they posted, do MVP and Stephanie Hahn have something big cooking? And I believe they do. I believe what they're hinting at is a Stephanie Hahn versus Holly Holm fight. Now, why would it happen this way and perhaps not the other? Why Stephanie next and not Terry? It's because for Holly Holm, who is still easing her way back into the sport of boxing, she's already had a tune-up fight. Stephanie is considerably less experienced than Terry Harper. Stephanie only became a champion not but 1 or 2 fights ago, whereas Terry's already been a champion at multiple weights, 3 by my count, and she's won some fights, she's lost some fights, but overall, she's a lot more experienced than Stephanie. So if you're Holly Holm and you're easing your way back into boxing, you would go after Stephanie first, get her WBA title in what I think is a very winnable fight for Holly. Then, after that, you face Terry. And what would a fight between Stephanie and Holly look like? I believe that Holly Holm would be the ring general in that fight. Ring general in the sense that whatever happens, happens on Holly Holmes' terms. And if you know Holly, you'll know she's a pure boxer and a mover. But unlike many of today's pure boxers, Holly's old school. She mixes in combinations with the movement. She's a very active pure boxer, even though she spends the majority of a fight on the balls of her feet. She's not stingy with the punches. I think that's the difference between this new era of pure boxers that are a lot more economic with their output and yesterday's pure boxers. Holly is old school. Even though she spends the entirety of a fight moving around, she's not stingy with the punches, so it's not a boring fight. She's not a boring fighter in spite of being a pure boxer. So in a fight with Stephanie Hahn, I believe that Holly would dictate the pace and the space in the fight. She would force Stephanie Hahn to go after her, to come forward, at which point Holly can walk her into counters, walk her into combinations, and lead the dance, ultimately leading to a points decision. Because Holly, as good as she is, she's not a knockout merchant. I believe that Stephanie Hahn would not have an answer for Holly Holmes' lateral movement and counters. And remember that Holly's got generous physical dimensions for a lightweight. She's got good height, good length, long legs, making for long strides. I think Holly would make it very difficult for Stephanie to get to her, and so I would have Holly winning that fight. At which point, after becoming WBA champion, then Holly could go into that Terry Harper fight, which I think would be a little bit more difficult, not just because Terry's a lot younger than Holly Holm, but also because Terry's a very experienced fighter, an experienced champion who's been a champion at 3 weights. The onus really is on MVP to make every single one of these fights happen because they have all the bodies. They have all the fighters. The saving grace is, I think they're going to. I would not be at all surprised to see Stephanie Hahn versus Holly Holm on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. And even if it doesn't end up on that undercard, I still expect to see that fight happen before this year is out because there's plenty of time left. In men's super middleweight news, former Canelo foe warns Terence Crawford he will lure you into a false sense of security. Securita. John Ryder has warned that one punch from Saul Canelo Alvarez in this fight with Terence Crawford could change everything. Ryder was outpointed by Canelo in Guadalajara 2 years ago in 2023. In a bruising battle, Ryder was dropped and had his nose broken, but was in there throwing leather for the full 12 rounds. Canelo is the undisputed super middleweight champion, and Crawford is making the leap from 154 to 168, having had just one fight at 154. And even though Crawford is the older and smaller man, in the huge fight at the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas on Saturday, Ryder sees the fight as hard to call. I feel it's 50-50, said the Englishman. Terence Crawford's unbelievable. You're looking at two generational talents there. Terence Crawford's seen the blueprint of how to beat Canelo with Dimitri Bivol. If he adopts a style like that, in and out, quick feet, which he's got. The switch hitting, he can punch with both hands, he can make it hard work for Canelo. There has been a shift in momentum, with many in the trade siding with the Nebraska pound-for-pounder, but Ryder thinks the Mexican's size will prove too great.
Size of his cock.
I do feel Canelo will walk him down. The sheer size of him, the strength, will probably wear Terence Crawford down. Added the former contender, I think Canelo still has the power. He's not got the speed he once had, but he's got the accuracy. He's got the power. I think the speed with the power is where the knockouts come from, but I think he can make it hard work for anyone. And he can if he's not knocking you out. He's going to punish you. I think Canelo is very smart. I've seen it myself firsthand. You see it with so many other opponents. The first round, he's just going to have a look. He's just going to throw out a few jabs, and I was thinking, oh, I slipped that, and I got my own jab off. It's not as hard as I thought it would be, but I think he lures you into a false sense of security. He's getting all the data from you. He's assessing how you react to his feints, to what he does. Then he reacts to it accordingly, and you can see that I was so eager to get my foot on the right side, on the outside of his, so I could get my hooks off and not give him the catch-counter hook that he loves so much. Ryder made one false move, found himself out of position, and everything changed. I went to catch his hook, bring the uppercut through, and he broke my nose and changed it in the second round, said Ryder, who struggled to breathe and had to box through a stream of blood the rest of the way. Seeing the fighters side by side in the buildup of this weekend's fight has given rise to a lot of debates as to who the bigger man actually is. You know, because Terence Crawford does look an inch or two taller than Canelo, and we know he's got more reach, more wingspan than Canelo. So is he the smaller fighter moving up? Friend of the channel, Phoenix LG6TX said, if we're really being 100% honest here, Terence Crawford is truly the bigger, taller fighter. Longer reach than Canelo Alvarez and wider. Why are we pretending that Terence Crawford's dimensions are not bigger than Canelo Alvarez's? So the bigger man is Terence Crawford, and Canelo Alvarez was tiny standing next to Crawford. In your minds, you've got Canelo bigger, but that's not reality. Canelo's just been at 168 longer. Canelo Alvarez by knockout, and so the smaller man beats the bigger guy, who is Terence Crawford.
Is that the way it is?
No, Canelo is in fact the bigger man because these are weight classes, not height classes, not wingspan classes.
Weight classes.
So how do you know that Terence is the smaller fighter moving up? Well, Terence Crawford not that long ago was campaigning as a welterweight and a junior middle subsequently after that, whereas Canelo Alvarez would have to cut off a leg, maybe both, to make either 147 or 154 because he's bigger, naturally bigger.
That's how you know. Canelo Alvarez outgrew junior middleweight years ago. He outgrew middleweight years ago.
Because he is the naturally bigger man, but you're confusing that with being the naturally shorter man. These are weight classes, not height classes. Sebastian Fundora may stand in at 6'3" or 6'4" at 154.
That makes him taller than Christian Mobili at 168. That makes him taller than both Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev.
at 175. But does that make Sebastian Fundora a super middle? Does that make him a light heavyweight?
No.
No. Those men are still naturally bigger because they're heavier. They could never get down to 154.
Not unless they're half dead.
Sebastian can because he's naturally smaller, albeit taller. But that's why I keep telling you, these are weight classes, not height classes.
Wait.
And so John Ryder thinks that Canelo will be too big and too strong for Terence Crawford, and he's not the only one.
Too much. I'm boxer. I know what is this when you change one weight division. You change one weight division and you feel power, And he's jumping two weight division. Yes, a lot of people told me Crawford very strong. When Crawford feeling power Canelo, and it's that problem for him really. Yeah, I think because I tell you, and you change one weight division, you feeling this. It's jumping two division and one fight before he 147. He changed one weight division and the first fight with the Madrimov. Very close fight. He just weight division. Now he jumped two more weight division. For me it's too much. I don't know. For me it's too much. Yes, I think Canelo beat him.
It's pretty much the same rhetoric that you're getting from John Ryder, that Canelo's just too big. For Sergey Bohachuk, jumping up one weight class, you can immediately feel the difference in the fighter's power, let alone two, like Terence Crawford is going to do, and Terence wasn't even at 154 very long. It's arguable that he never actually acclimated to that weight, so to now debut at this one against this guy...
Power is a factor. It's definitely a factor. And that's what most people seem to address when talking about this fight. But the reason I'm going with Canelo, it's not just the size and the power.
It's the skill set. It is the experience coupled with the size and power. That Terence isn't moving up there for some brute.
Some heavy-handed guy with no technique, no X's and O's. He's moving up there for a heavy-handed guy with those bells and whistles and more experience than he has.
I just think it's taking on too much too soon. But because Terence Crawford strikes me as a hyper-competitive kind of guy and a thrill seeker, this is the kind of situation that gets his juices going. He truly believes that he can win this fight, and I don't hold that against him. I don't begrudge him for that. That's the kind of attitude you want a fighter to have ahead of a big fight. It's just that I think he's biting off more than he can chew, and I think he's going to lose this weekend.
When I saw him dancing, I thought, you know what? I think I have better dance moves. We need to have this dance-off battle, and then we need to have a fight battle.
In your heart of
Two
hearts,
battles.
and I would love that. I would love to see both of them. But in your heart of hearts, do you think this fight ever happens, truly?
Truly, probably not. I'm not sure how many fights Usyk has left, even though he has a lot to offer and a lot to give the sport of boxing, and he's a great champion. He is 38 years old, and he probably have a few more fights before he calls it a day. He's had he's had one of the best careers, unified undisputed and cruiserweight, now heavyweight. So you can't knock the guy down. But I do want to fight the best in the world, and he is the best at the moment.
Do you think that will be a stain on his legacy if he doesn't fight you? You're right there, and everyone wants to see this fight. You're the interim champion in WBO. Do you think that people will use that against him? Should they use that against him?
I don't know. Listen, I mean, I'm one of those fighters that, the older fighters that are still at the top of the game. You had Tyson, AJ, Chisora even had a fight with him, and there's myself. So I feel like if he doesn't fight me, it's just, I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
All right. Do you have animosity towards him for not taking the fight against you?
Nah, not at all. He's we get along well, and he's very respectful towards me, and the same I'm respectful towards him. So I'm not sure what kind of what they're looking for in terms of opportunity or the fighters they're looking at fighting next. But the only thing that I can do is be patient and stay focused on the task at hand.
I think that Ariel Helwani was looking for more provocative and sexy answers from Joseph Parker, that maybe Ariel expected
Sex.
that Joseph would be mad, that he's not going to get his crack at the apple. that as far as he's concerned, he has the utmost respect for Alexander Usyk, and a fight between them may not happen, and he's okay with that. He's okay waiting for his turn, and he is okay being patient.
Sex.
In my honest opinion, Joseph knows that he's in a very strong position right now. He's WBO interim champion. He stands a better chance of becoming a two-time heavyweight champion not fighting Usyk than fighting him, because Usyk still is the best in show, and because I think if they made that fight, Usyk would win that fight.
Whereas, if he gracefully bows out and vacates the titles, Joseph gets elevated to that position.
Joseph Parker, whose fight with Fabio Wardley was recently announced. Fabio's a good fighter, he's a solid guy, but he's no Alexander Usyk. Another reason that Joseph might be in good spirits is because it's not like he's just collecting dust on the shelf waiting for a fight with Usyk. He's about to have another fight.
Decent-sized fight with a decent fighter.
He's not missing out any money. He's still getting a chance to work. I appreciate that Joseph was a lot more level-headed with his answers than some other fighters would have been. I appreciate his honesty. The fight that he's about to have with Fabio Wardley towards the end of the year, it's a decent-sized fight, it's a big fight, and it's a winnable fight, given how Fabio Wardley just looked with Justice Huni. Justice is a lot less experienced than Joseph. Less durable, I'd wager.
I think it's established by now that Joseph is one of the most durable heavyweights in the heavyweight division. He can take a shot that you've gotta really beat the hell out of this guy to keep him down. Joe Joyce.
To date, Joe Joyce is the only man to ever stop Joseph Parker, and Joseph has since rebounded in a big way. Big way. Currently, he's on a 6-fight winning streak. I like Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley as fighters, but as far as that fight, I favor Joseph to win it. I think his durability, his experience, and his power, because he's got some power, I think that'll be enough to dish out Fabio his first loss.
Strong corner, too. He's got Andy Lee.
But as far as likely not getting the Usyk fight, Joseph doesn't seem all that broken up about it. Ariel asked him, is it a stain on Usyk's legacy if they don't fight? It's a valid question, but I don't think it's a stain. Usyk versus Parker is not some fight that was built up over years and years that people were clamoring for. The only real reason it's a conversation is because Joseph is one of several mandatories that Usyk has. Another is Agit Kabayel.
WBA have theirs, and very soon the IBF will have theirs. I mean, that's just the byproduct of Usyk going out on a high, still being a champion in the twilight years of his career. You're bound to leave behind some unfinished business, some mandatories. Because if you made it a point to satisfy every single mandatory that pops up before you call it a career, you'd never retire. It would never end. There's always gonna be somebody else. You take care of one, 2 more pop up in the queue with some other organization. I saw Usyk standing next to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at the recent movie premiere of The Smashing Machine. And the only thing I thought to myself is, I don't know why Usyk is prolonging this. There's really nothing left to do. Of course you could come back and have 1 or 2 fights with 1 or 2 mandatories, but to prove what? You've already proven everything. Retire.